We are back.
Hi, everyone. We're excited to be with you today and excited to bring a topic that I know Tiffany and I are very passionate about, very excited about, and that is discussing pride. And so this episode should be releasing uh, over the month of Pride, which is a very important month. And so I just want to give a shout out. There's a lot of great local Pride meetups, whether that's in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Lebanon, Ohio, Middletown, Ohio, Hamilton, Ohio. There are so many wonderful options to celebrate. So today we're just going to give a little bit of background on Pride and talk a little bit about why it's important. So first, just a little history on Pride for some who may not know. I think it's always a great refresher for us, but June 28th, 1969, the night of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City, after many, many instances of issues of harassment, criminalization of the queer community, there was pushback and fight back at the Stonewall Inn. And so heroes like Marsha Johnson, Sylvia Rivera were front and center, activists who understood that the demand, visibility, and safety was in itself an act of resistance. And that one moment was a spark that led to many other moments and led to the movement we know as Pride today. And so, Tiffany, I know you and I both like to prep a little bit, but I thought it'd be worth just giving a shout out to those who really led this movement.
Yeah. So I think that was primarily my Saint pick. It's early. Words are gonna be really hard.
That's okay.
Uh yeah, so I kind of had this very similar topic point on mine as well. And then I kind of had that talk about how Cincinnati itself also had that complicated LGBTQ plus history, including the 1990s era Issue 3, Article 12, which banned LGBTQ plus anti-discrimination protections, and that wasn't overturned until 2004.
Wow, that's very important to this conversation. Yeah, I did it prep for local Cincinnati stuff, so thank you, Tiffany, for bringing that piece in today.
Yeah. I tried to prep for the local because I was like, there's so much on a grand scale. Yeah.
Well, so why don't we kind of get a little bit more into maybe some of the pieces of pride. So, I mean, Tiffany and I are very passionate about this being a trauma podcast, but also we do want to address things that are important to both of us. And also, we have so many clients, friends, professionals, and in our community that are within the queer community. And so, this is something that we would like to just show our support and not leave for others. So, with that being said, resistance can take many, many forms. It doesn't have to be just in protest. It can be something with a mindset. It can be something with how we're carrying ourselves in different conversations. But unfortunately, many folks within the queer community have had traumatic experiences related to that identity. I know I work a lot with religious trauma, and so many clients I have had have unfortunately not been in a supportive religious environment. Not all, so I should say not all, but I would say a majority or a good more than a majority have had some of those negative experiences. So because of this identity, they have faced more trauma, which has increased some of the other mental health outcomes they were already struggling with or started to struggle with as a part of this.
Hmm. Yeah. I know. Did I even Yeah, nope. Didn't mine was more on the like chosen family intersectionality. Didn't do the trauma bullet point.
That's okay. So I mean, just why I think it's good to talk about is that I want to just give a um shout out that, the queer community has found many ways to have their own healing and have their own support and space. And so even the DSM up until very recently in our past defined different identities within the queer community as being mental health disorders. They no longer do that. So I would say honestly, counseling kind of has a problematic uh, past. And an episode I know Tiffany and you and I have talked about recording here separately is something on conversion therapy, air quotes. That's what it's known by. It's certainly not therapy. So I just want to give a shout out that the queer community has found lots of ways of healing that unfortunately did not include therapy because at sometimes they were not able to, or therapy was being literally weaponized against them and not a source of healing, but a source of pain and another source of trauma. Um, so I just want to give a shout out to all those just survivorship ways people have found to get to that point in the journey and survive and carry on when it was not easy and so different situations today, but just want to give a shout out to maybe where things have been before.
Hmm. Yeah. And on that, just recognizing that some LGBT might pride might be the only time and the first time that they emotionally feel safe to be out loud and explore, um, those emotions of grief, fear, joy, or longing.
Yeah. So it's not just a single event as regards to trauma that we're talking about today. When we're talking about some of these traumatic events, we're talking about microaggressions, rejections, silence, the lack of questions, the lack of following up about, "Hey, what did you do this weekend with your partner?" Just being unincluded. So there's the like cumulative trauma that a lot of people can experience, but also like the big T trauma, but also just estranged family relationships, feeling like you don't belong in your own community, religious condemnation, maybe bullying at school, maybe even trauma and getting healthcare treatment for your different needs and being called the wrong. I mean, we could go on and on, I'm sure, with different examples. But Tiffany, is there anything for you that you would like to add about maybe trauma in the LGBT plus community and what that maybe looks like and what that has maybe could be for some of maybe people you've interacted with or worked with?
Yeah. I know mine kind of focuses more primarily on like the experience around pride, and how that can be intimidating if you're questioning, you're fluid, or you have internalized messages like "I'm not queer enough." Um, we want to help normalize that nonlinear nature of identity development that people can struggle with during that time. Um, and there's a lot of grief that people can deal with too as you work to realize that you're different, especially if that, as you mentioned, disrupts faith, family, career structures, things of that nature. Um, One thing that I really like is how we can work to frame questioning as an expansion, not a confusion. That way, pride is more welcoming the becoming and not just the ones that have arrived.
Yeah, I do think there's a nonlinear journey. I think some people heal and have those wounds heal, some don't. Some want to go back in those spaces and are able to go back in those spaces, change those spaces for them. And others aren't able to do that. So I think one of the things that's very interesting, I've been talking to some of our therapist friends off mic, and we talk a lot about like you can't give blanket mental health advice very rarely. Like, I mean, you could talk about, oh, your sleep's disturbed. Have you tried meditating or slowing down? But you really can't say, oh, that's person's a narcissist if they said that, this. Oh, so I just want to make sure if anyone is listening, and we appreciate you listening, that we're not trying to give any blanket cookie cutter advice. That's really not helpful. Tiffany and I do not know your situation. We don't know what you're experiencing. So please don't hear anything we're talking about today as like, oh, you must do this or feeling judged. We're just trying to kind of summarize some of the different information so that it can be in a more central location and we can kind of have more conversations because this is a very important conversation topic.
Hmm. Yeah. No two individuals are alike, therefore, no two journeys are alike.
And really, no nervous system is alike, no body is alike, and so just saying that those traumatic experiences we're talking about, it leaves marks, and it changes how the body can even hold stress, how the mind processes information, feeling safety, feeling vulnerable. Uh, so why I think we have to honor this is like, honestly, if I were talking to a client in the queer community and they were like, "Well, hey, I've been around when therapy used to say I was insane just for loving who I love." It's a fair conversation and point that they're making, and I don't think as a therapist I can discredit that because they're not wrong. And even if, I mean, let's say that wasn't the case, it was, that's still their experience. And that experience is real and valid because of all these other experiences they've had.
Hmm. Yeah. Making sure we're validating everyone's experience and learning from them. It can be really powerful to sit down and think about like all the things you can learn from differing experiences as well.
Well, Tiffany, I know I'm kind of bouncing us around a little bit. Is there anything that you would like to kind of add in as we're kind of opening this conversation today?
I think one thing I wanted to talk about, the power of the chosen family is kind of what I had a topic to talk about during Pride.
Mm, I think that's a very important conversation this time of year.
Yeah. And it can be a really emotional and somatic toll when someone's family of origin, let me correct myself, rejects them, and how chosen family can help us rewire our attachment responses when we find healthy chosen family.
So I guess here's a question for you, Tiffany. If somebody, I'm gonna make it a little harder. They've moved, maybe, and they don't have family that they know. They thought they were gonna have family in the area, but because of maybe some of their identities, they're not being supported for whatever reason. Like, how does somebody make more connections or find those friends that can be like family, like you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, so there's always the support system. Um, I wish I could remember the name of the Cincinnati group, the LGBT groups, but it isn't coming to me this morning. The biggest thing I always ask people is who showed up for you when they didn't have to, and what parts of your identity feel safest in which relationships. And you can use those kind of to help you guide of like to help you kind of like quote unquote find a family that makes better sense for you. Um, which in of itself is wrapped up in a lot of grief and pain and loss and sadness as you're kind of like going through the process of recognizing like maybe my family of origin like isn't exactly the healthiest and now I have to find a new family because of that like conditional love or chronic invalidation that some families can place upon individuals. Um, and then you can, once you find your chosen family, that can become a space for like secure attachment. And it's based in principles upon like shared values and consistent presence in a person's life versus those conditions that sometimes are placed upon individuals.
Wow. What's a good gauge for me gauging, just me as a person, how safe maybe someone is or how safe I'm feeling? Like if I'm maybe not in therapy, I haven't practiced this before. Any tips you would have, Tiffany, for someone trying to gauge their sense of safety around someone new or someone they're less familiar with?
Hmm. I think it would come down to exploring like for yourself. Um, how validated do you feel around this person? Do you feel like you could truly be yourself around this person? Do you notice if you're hiding parts of you or if you're being your whole true self? Kind of those little subtleties, oh my gosh, words. There's little subtle things um that you can kind of like monitor for yourself to kind of pick apart whether or not someone is creating a safe atmosphere for you to be around them.
Mm. And I also think just maybe noticing, like, are you stressed out after being around that person? Do
Mhm.
you feel maybe more drained than normal? That may be a sign. Now, if you did something really stressful, like you went to a job interview with them, or maybe you were, showing up for them at court or something. I don't know. Just, that may not be the best read, but if it's a normal experience and you kind of know, okay, this is how I feel when I'm at a coffee shop. This is how I feel when I do meet um, new friends type of thing. Um, that would be a good gauge.
Yes. Always gauging your feelings around a person. I wish I had did a little bit more research, more notes on like those covert symptoms of like not feeling safe in relationships, but maybe a deeper dive for another time.
Let's bookmark that one. I like that. I love that. Um, yeah, I just think sometimes we have to just honor just some of that adaptation and healing that some of us can be kind of talking about. So finding safe people, like Tiffany's saying, I think is very good. Finding community. And also knowing like some of this, all these steps we're talking about, this takes time, and just maybe a throwback to what you've said, Tiffany, it's not linear. So for some people, that may take them 5 seconds, some people 5 minutes, some people 5 years, 50 years. So I just want to encourage you, there's no set time for each one of these ideas or steps, and you may not even need to take some of these steps, I mean, but I do just want to validate that we don't get to choose how traumas impact us. Our responses are authentic and natural, and it's not something we can control. We can kind of control how we attempt to heal, what we use to try to heal, but we really genuinely can't control the response we have to going through something traumatic.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Something too to keep in mind is that while pride can be like super fun and super engaging, it can also be overstimulating, especially for neurodivergent folks, trauma survivors, and those navigating dysphoria.
Could you say maybe more about that, Tiffany? Because I feel like that's a very interesting point. So I don't want to steer it the way my brain's going off of that.
Yeah, so just keeping in mind, pride is a season, not just one singular day. And like normalizing like leaving early or not attending some events over others is totally okay. Um, because everyone has different like social batteries and like engagement batteries that we have to be aware of. Um, so like some signs you might be dysregulated at a pride event is dissociation or spacing out in very large crowds, sudden onset of panic or feeling like you're going to shut down, those emotional waves that seem like they kind of like come out of nowhere. Um, some things you can do to like, excuse me, goodness, to regulate, if you still want to go to these big crowd events, is like have a sensory safe object or a fidget toy. You can use your buddy system, designate a quiet space or an escape plan, um, and then just make sure you're taking care of your bodies because all bodies deserve proper nourishment.
Hmm, hmm. Nourishment, I think, can look a lot of different forms. So I think nourishment could be the rest, like getting sleep. It could be having that quiet space that you just described, Tiffany. I think there's a lot of different things that could look like nourishment or rest. And so just kind of knowing, like, hey, what are the things that are rejuvenating? What are the things that are decompressing? Um, yeah, I love that point. I think that's a very important point. I guess some of the things that I would kind of tack on of just I think we're giving some context to pride, some context for maybe things to look out for mental health, but for healing, maybe participating in Pride. Like, it could be wearing something that shows that you are in the community or you support the community, going to events that are based about Pride. I mean, there's so many different I mean, whether the I mean, I'm thinking about, like, all the fundraisers, all the I mean, there's so many events this time of year, and, you can go to whatever you feel comfortable. You could go to things that are at the parks, you could go to things that are, at the restaurant. There's so many different options, but, I mean, it on the surface, it looks like, "Oh, it's dancing, it's wearing colors and flags and but it's participating. It's challenging maybe some of that shame that maybe some of us were given. I mean, it challenges some of these ideas a little bit, and so I think just advocating or supporting, and I would just encourage people. A lot of people start maybe at the spectrum of feeling comfortable at some of those events, and so you will have people who are trying to make everyone feel included and welcome and safe. They're very wonderful events, and so you just want to honor that. You don't have to be willing to go up and speak or whatever. You literally can just go and participate, and that's all you literally can just walk in, show up, and not have to do any more than that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Some ideas for support would be showing up for different people going through some of those challenging experiences. So maybe showing up for a name change hearing. It could be like having pronouns as an ally, putting pronouns out there. Uh, you could look like trying to have inclusive terms. So maybe instead of saying my wife or husband and just saying partner, giving space for those to not feel like they have to share more than they would like to. Um, so there's just lots of different ways we can support each other, whether we're in the community or we're allies. But one of the things I wanted to make sure to say is that all of our existences matter, all of our stories matter, and none of us are alone, even though at times we will feel like we are. Um, Pride is not about tolerance, it's about solidarity, and there is a lot of work to do for solidarity and supporting each other in 2025.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, Tiffany, anything you'd like to add to any of this?
I just wanted to highlight a few Cincinnati organizations that are doing the work. There's Transform Cincy, which offers free clothing and transition gear for our trans youth. Cincinnati Black Pride, which amplifies Black LGBTQ voices. And then there's the Lighthouse Youth Services, which provides housing and resources for LGBTQ plus youth. Um, so I invite you guys to reach out, support them, utilize them if you need them as a service. Um, and then I just had a few I wanted to leave you guys with some reflection. Since I'm always calling out Eric, I'm gonna call out you guys
Well,
now. Um, so what part of yourself deserves more celebration this month? And how has your understanding of pride changed over time? And what does it mean to you now? We would love to hear your thoughts.
ooh, I love that. You're calling everybody out, not just me. I love
Yeah,
the shift.
calling them everyone out. Everyone, come in, phone a friend.